Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Ready, Steady, Rehab on With Sports Radio, where we believe that women in sport deserve equal coverage.
When I told you I was going to give you advice.
Ready, Steady, Rehab is an all-new podcast about sports injuries, what can cause them, symptoms to look out for, and the rehabilitation process. And welcome to this episode. I'm Dr. Heather North, Doctor of Physical Therapy at Red Hammer Rehab. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about feet issues and how to figure out what your injury is and what type of shoes to wear. And so hopefully you will enjoy this episode. All right. So the main thing to really keep in mind about foot pain, I get patients come in all the time. They say that they have plantar fasciitis, and that's a really, really common injury. And I really like to delineate the discrepancies in foot issues dependent on the location of the pain. So I'm going to go ahead and separate the foot up into 3 different pieces, and we can talk about possible injuries and issues that you might be having there, and what kind of insoles that might help for those things. So first of all, heel pain, so the back of the foot. This is this kind of common misinformation that everything in the heel is going to be plantar fasciitis. And that's really not the case. So you can have pain on the back of the heel, and if it's way, way, way on the back of the heel, it can be insertional issues with the Achilles, needing to stretch the calf a little bit more. Even oftentimes the back of the heel can be an issue from bruising, from walking on a beach, even to having orthotics that might be a little bit too hard and they're actually rubbing and putting pressure on the area. So heel bruises are really, really common in the back of the foot, and they're a pretty simple injury to get a handle on if they can be diagnosed properly. Another location of heel bruising is that traditional plantar fascia location, that internal heel bone, a little bit to the inside, kind of right up underneath. And, it can go hand in hand with plantar fasciitis, but again, if it is that really painful, sore foot position, you might want to think about trying to wear something cushioned and see if cushioning makes a big difference. And if that's the case, cushioning really is something that helps. Most likely that periosteum, or that outside layer of bone, is a little aggravated either from impact or from too much strain on that plantar fascia. So getting some type of an insole, my favorite insole for these types of issues for the back of the heel and for right underneath, is an insole called a Backjoy soft soles. They're actually a local Colorado company. I promise that we're not sponsored by them. I just really like what they do for my patients. And it's a nice kind of cushioned foam. It's not thick or anything like that. And it's actually a material that was licensed off of Crocs. And it helps to give a little bit of cushioning, enough so that bone can heal up after time. You have to be really, really consistent with your shoe wear while you do have a bone bruise. And I think the misinformation that people get is that they need to really think about their exercise shoes and maybe wear those shoes all day long. And that's really not the case. So you want to be wearing your everyday shoes. Your everyday shoes are the most important thing to get a handle on bruising to the bone of the heel or the back of the heel. Shoes like flip-flops, OOFOS, Crocs, sometimes even Danskos and Birkenstocks make the foot feel better. And again, it's all about kind of unweighting that sore spot for a long period of time. Bone bruises can take, up to a year to really feel better. It's not to say that you can't stay active, but you need to stay on top of your shoe wear during that time. And that's also why you see all these kind of differing opinions on what helps plantar fasciitis online. And it sounds like it's almost like voodoo medicine, how to get that discomfort to feel better. So it's really important, again, to have that discrepancy of exactly what type of foot pain there is. So heel pain, again, isn't all plantar fasciitis. There is traditional plantar fasciitis, and that's that, kind of pain at the heel, but it's backed off just a little bit more towards the arch, just a teeny tiny bit, so it's not right on the bone. And, stretching that plantar fascia really helps, getting into more supportive shoes. And that, again, here is the case. So if you're finding that cushioning isn't really necessarily making things better, but stability is making things feel better, I really like just a basic over-the-counter sole insole. That's the brand. They're heat moldable. They're super wonderful. Your therapist, podiatrist, they can make small accommodations onto those as well. That can make a big difference. So stretching, massage, that's all really important. And kind of the third piece of what a lot of times patients will diagnose themselves as plantar fasciitis is an irritation of the nerve that runs along that inside aspect of the heel. And for these patients, they don't just have heel pain, but they have pain that comes up along the inside of the heel, so kind of up on the inside of the ankle. And for these patients, we have to kind of unweight that nerve because sometimes it can be from walking in flip-flops on the beach, enjoying your vacation, all those wonderful things. We see a lot of what we call tarsal tunnel. Again, that's that nerve this time of the year where people start to switch from winter shoes to summer shoes. So we get patients into an insole called the Pinnacle Max, and it's very similar to the sole insole, except it has a little bit of a rear foot stability built in. And again, that helps to take pressure off of that heel. And I want to be really clear that these insoles aren't permanent solutions. They can be kind of discarded after you get everything under control. As long as you're feeling that you're not overcorrected, you can stay in them if you're really comfortable in them. So that kind of goes through common heel pain issues. Arch pain also is something that a lot of times patients will come in and to see us and they talk about, oh, I have plantar fasciitis. So not the case. So arch pain really has to do with the muscles on the bottom of your foot. You also have some tendons there. Those are the tendons and muscles that help to flex the toes. And it can be anything from wearing too flexible shoes to, again, walking barefoot to straining that musculature. And it can become a little bit of chronic problem if you don't work that tissue out and then begin to strengthen those muscles. That's a super easy one to get figured out yourself even. So lots of self-massage to the arch. You can use like a self-massage tool, golf ball, things like that. And then for some patients, they find that arch support helps. Some patients don't. So again, going with what feels good for your injury, it makes a big difference. Forefoot pain, this is where we do start to get into a little bit more complex stuff. Anything from stress fractures in the metatarsal bones to Morton's seromas to sesamoiditis. Morton's seromas are an irritation between your little balls of your feet. There's a nerve that goes through there, and that nerve can get pinched and irritated and actually swell in size. Metatarsal bones, those are the long bones of the forefoot. Those can have stress fractures, and sesamoid is a tiny little, almost like a kneecap bone that sits underneath your first metatarsal head. That can get aggravated as well. So things to keep in mind that are really good to help with forefoot pain: metatarsal pads. And again, remember, those guys go right behind the metatarsal heads, never under. They go behind, more towards the arch, and they help to unweight the metatarsal area. So that kind of goes through, some of the simple issues with your feet. So the insoles that we talked about, I really encourage patients to go with what is comfortable. That's really, really important. A lot of the new research is actually showing that more emphasis and focus on patient comfort in insoles versus trying to be really specific about biomechanics and making sure that everything is perfect is actually the better way to go in terms of preventing injury. Some things to do to help keep your feet healthy. Go without shoes if you're at your desk. Take your shoes off. Start to do little toe scrunches. Learn to flare your toes. Learn to lift your big toe up. Gaining lots of strength is very important. Single leg stance, balancing exercises. As a modern society, as I've talked about in some of my previous podcasts, we do a lot of sitting, and it's really, really important to make sure that we're strengthening our feet, and it will keep us away from a lot of injuries, because if you're strengthening the muscles in the bottom of the feet, you're helping to take strain off the plantar fascia. You're also tempering the calcaneus, or your heel bone, so that it's not so prone to being banged and irritated. So if you're not feeling quite as comfortable in a shoe, you're going to start exercising and doing what you do on a daily basis a little bit differently, and that can definitely increase your injury risk. So I really encourage you, when you go to pick out shoes, try on a bunch of different options and really see not only what you look a little bit better in from a biomechanical standpoint, but also look at what feels very good to you. And the last piece of this, we talk about the foot analysis, is actually getting a gait analysis. There are online options to get gait analyses. We do them actually through the clinic here. You can see your local physical therapist. There are some running coaches. Please make sure that they do have some very good qualifications. But that we're actually finding is almost a more important thing to do than to really focus so heavily on our shoes. It's to learn to engage our core, to run with a little bit quicker turnover, to land more midfoot, and making changes in terms of cadence, turnover, glute strength, core, all of that's very, very important. So I encourage you to really think about your foot discomfort not only as just a foot issue or an insole issue, but also as a strength and core issue, gait analysis issue, and just general body strength. So working on the entire machine versus just the distal aspects or just your feet. So hopefully that gave you some great information about some common foot issues. And hopefully you found this helpful. And if you'd like some more information on all this, you can visit our website at redhammerrehab.com. It's provided in the show notes, and you can also email info@wispsports.com with any questions that you might have about sports injuries like this. On the next episode, we're really going to be talking about training for your first marathon and what that means. There's also going to be some links in the show notes accompanying this episode at wispsports.com. So just go to listen and click on Ready, Steady, Rehab. For more conversations in the world of women's sport, please visit wispsports.com and subscribe to Wisp Sports Radio on your podcast player. You can also post your comments and share on social media. So just look for @RedHammerRehab and @Wisp Sports. And thanks so much for listening and supporting women in sport.
Will you